Hey everyone, my name's Flash 8. It's really late, so please bear with me, but I feel obligated to make a video going over this document. This video is not a replacement to the document, but to better help you digest what is happening in this document. These are some very serious allegations that I am proposing against SacredGhost that I believe his 116 and 117 pip percent runs are cheated. Again, I'd urge you all to take this very seriously. SacredGhost is he is currently the community leader. He is the super mod for Super Paper Mario. So yeah, kind of a lot going through my mind right now. I want to kind of like walk through this document with you because there's a lot of this is very dense, and typically when people see like blocks of code, they just kind of shut their brain off. And so I want to help explain what all of this is and dumb it down the best that I can so that anybody would be able to understand what's going on. And I'll probably miss a few things, but yeah. So, long story short, exactly how he's doing this, my theory is that he's using the net memory access rel mod written by John. So essentially, what's going on is his Wii U is sending information to his to his PC. Information like which enemy has the key in the Pit of 100 Trials. I don't want to go like too deep into like what is the Pit of 100 Trials and like what's going on, but essentially, in short, there's 90 different rooms, and there's a bunch of different enemies in each room, and a random one will have the key that lets you move on to the next room. Where the keys is placed, where the enemies are placed, that is random. Your starting location is random, and your ending location is relative to where your starting location was. But yeah, that's basically pip percent. So I want to talk about how to create this rel mod. I'm not going to go into major detail. If you want major detail, here it is. So essentially, a rel mod is like if you're active in the community, it's like practice codes for Super Paper Mario. Essentially, it is external code outside of the game that is injected through the use of a save file. And we use what's a rel mod. I'm not super familiar with SPM modding, but I am a software engineer, so I do kind of have a general idea of how some of this stuff works. But most of this can be easily figured out with AI. So, for example, this is the repository right here. No, this is John, the creator of the repository. So this right here is what was used in order to send information from his Wii to his PC. So basically, all you have to do is you ask AI, hey, how do I set this up? And it'll give you a whole list of things that you need to download and compile. And so once you finally get all of that figured out, and then it teaches you how to set up your environment, you just open up a command prompt line in this folder right here and type make. Once it does that, all you have to do is double click this Python file, and then you're basically done. You have your rel file. So now that you have your rel mod file, you just drag that into your saves in Dolphin. You can literally just go. I have it open right now, so it won't let me. But you can open the Wii save folder, drag the thing in there, and then you can literally use a rel mod loader from like practice codes or something. Siki has a whole repository on using or loading this rel mod into the game through the save file exploit. So this is what I'm trying to get at is like this was not complicated to figure out. AI did most of the heavy lifting. A huge theory behind like how this possibly wasn't cheated is that like he wouldn't know how to do this, but like I was able to set this up with no problems, and I've never touched SPM modding before in my life. So like I have a very hard time believing that he couldn't figure this out. But yeah. So another issue is when you load up the game, if you've ever loaded up practice codes or before, on the title screen it'll say practice codes version, blah, 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 blah. Well, this rel mod will tell you your IP address of your Wii U. So a big thing that we were like, well, how did he do that? Like, he had to have deleted that somehow. So, and when it was looking up your IP address, it would pause the main title screen. So that was kind of like a, well, did he actually do it? Because like how would he do that? So again, I just went back to AI and it navigated the repository. I simply asked it, hey, are you able to remove the IP address and the lag spike that happens as it's looking up my IP address at the start? And it was actually a lot easier than I thought it was. It literally pointed to this code and said, yeah, just comment this out or delete it. And that did the trick. No IP address at the top and no loading anymore. So basically now what we have is we have a version of the game that can send and receive information to your Wii from your desktop. So my desktop can say, hey, what does this memory address have? And then my Wii says, oh, it has this. This is the value. And there's basically no way that you could know that this rel mod is active. So how to use it? Let me just pull this up real quick. Actually, I'll show you how to like load this in a second. Sorry, my cats are being crazy right now. So I'll show you how to like load this in a second. I want to go over like the script because I already have like I already have it like set up, and I want to showcase that real quick. So basically, there's a few issues that we had that Ghost pointed out, and he actually fixed the main issues that we were having. So like, for example, you can't just like continually send packets like to and from. You have to like reconnect. I believe that's what the issue was. I might be wrong on that assumption, but essentially he fixes that in his networking class. So yeah, that's one thing that he had fixed. And then basically what you would want to do is you would want to look for enemies, and then you would want to find what items they're holding. And then you would just cycle through all of the different enemies in the room and print what items they have and their location. So I know that this looks like very complicated, but this is literally what that does. So I did edit this to be like to work for the Japanese version instead of the PAL version. But yeah, this is literally what. So this code that he sent me, this is exactly what it does. This is the enemy at slot 0. This is where it's standing. This is the item that it's holding. Nothing. This is this enemy. This is where it's standing. This is the item that it's holding. And this is the ID for the pit for the pit keys. So yeah, with this information, like he's already given me all the code that I need in order to make this rel mod, essentially. And so this is just me using that rel mod. So I'm going to unpause this. And then, so this is on Dolphin, but you can literally just extract the save file and you'd get the exact same thing. So this is the little Python script that I used AI to build based off of the code that he sent me. So I had it draw red dots for enemies that don't have the key and blue dots for enemies that do have the key. And so you can see as I get closer, the enemy loads back in and he starts moving again. And so I'm just gonna go over here and test this enemy. And look at that, has the key. It's as simple as that. This is a prototype. It's not exactly efficient, but it's literally just spamming calls left and right. But yeah, you can see how easy it is to just tell which enemy has the key. So yeah, I don't even really know what this code does. I literally just copy and pasted what Ghost has given me, and then I pasted it into AI and said, hey, make a little display that shows where all the enemies are and which one has the key. See, this was really simple. Like, this is not hard to set up at all whatsoever. Okay, so I've kind of pointed this out already, but this method of cheating is untraceable. There's literally nothing that you or I could point out that could point, like, it's not like finding a splice. Last time SacredGhost cheated in speedruns, it was very, very, very evident that we had what was and was not cheated because we could find the splicing that he did. And you could literally see a quality difference in the run. With this, literally all he has to do is that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to showcase how simple this is to set up. So this is the rel loader right here that we use for like practice codes or whatever. So you do the exact same thing that you would in practice codes. You open it, you open up the items menu, and then just like that. So you can see normally the IP address would be up here, the characters would pause, it would take a second for this to load, but it doesn't. Simply because we removed that line of code. So now, is this a race? I think this is a race. I've not played this game. So you can now see the rel mod is gone, the rel loader is gone, but the code is still active. So I'll rerun this code, and look at that. We have the rel mod active, and no trace of this. So I could literally reset right now. Which one's reset? I'm assuming it's this one. We'll find out the hard way. But yeah. So I think I need to reset this. I'm not positive because I didn't have to reset. We'll see if enemies start popping up. Yeah, look at that. And bada bing, bada boom, it's still working. And again, yes, this is on emulator, but you'd get the exact same results on a console. But yeah, this just goes to show that there's no way of telling, like definitively that this is exactly what he did. However, the evidence strongly points that this is exactly what he did. He left a lot of breadcrumbs around this being the method. He literally sent me the code that proves that, like, this is what he did and this is how he did it. And on top of that, the statistics, the behavior, and the background, it all perfectly aligns to point that this is exactly how he cheats. So first off, I'll go over statistics. This can also get a little dense, so I will do my best to break it down in the most, I guess, easy to understand way. So originally Phantom came up with the idea of checking the run through statistics. He opted to use key luck. So for example, we come in here, an enemy, so say there's like 5 or 6 enemies in this room, right? So the only issue that I have with this method of telling to see if he cheated is he's not manipulating who has the key. He only is telling who has the key. So for example, if there's like an enemy over here, there's an enemy over here, and there's an enemy over here, and then this one right here has the key. So he'd kill this one, go over here, kill this one, and then kill this one. So he had so he got on the third enemy the key out of 4 rooms. So you can calculate basically all of the odds altogether, and I believe, if I understand correctly, the odds or probability that he has is 0.02%. So I think that's like roughly like, I think that's like 1 in 10K or something. But out of the 44 runs that he did, the odds of getting that would be roughly 1 in 3,800. I'm not quite sure if I did the numbers on that right. I'm not positive on how Phantom calculated this. So again, the only major issue that I really have with this method of finding out, like, did he cheat or not, like how lucky did he get, is he's not manipulating which enemy has the key. So for example, say there's like 30 enemies to get to here, to this enemy right here. He still has to beat all 30 enemies to get to this key. So he's not manipulating the luck. He's just simply taking the fastest route to the key. And in a room like this, there are no really any other routes. Sure, there could be enemies down here as well. But say there's no enemies down here, and it's just one straight path to the key. So his luck would just be the same standard luck as anybody else's. So I think that what I opted to do was decide to choose the fastest path to the enemy. So for example here, so you can see there are 2 paths right here. And then you can see in the viewer, the key is kind of hard to see because the UI is in the way. But like the key is over here. So there's 2 paths that he could take. He could go up this way towards this enemy, or he could go this way towards this enemy. I think both of them are both very valid paths. But he always chooses the path that leads directly towards the key. Well, I say always. There are 2 rooms out of all 98 that he does not take the fastest path straight to the key. Now, I will also say that 52 of those rooms are standard. So meaning any runner would take those paths. There's not really any other option. That's just that. However, he wins 36 coin flips and only loses 2. Now, if you kind of see where I'm coming with this, winning 36 coin flips and losing 2 is not very likely. And again, looking at this, so this would lose a coin flip and this would win a coin flip. Sure, not all of the rooms are equal. For example, this might be a more likely path, and this might be less likely. I didn't opt to consider likelihood. However, I think that this is very beneficial for Ghost because he typically takes a lot of paths that are very, very, very... I don't know how else to say this, but nobody would do that. Very unlikely paths, and then they pay out. So I think that I'm doing him a favor by only considering every room a 50-50. There are also many rooms that have like 3 different paths or even 4 different paths. And so if he takes the right path, I still only consider that a 50-50. So the odds of him getting this accurate, 52 standard, 36 wins, 2 losses. 36 wins, 2 losses is roughly 1 in 360 million. Now, I will say the 2 rooms that he did not pick the fastest path are also very fishy. I do debate that if you were to not consider these 2 rooms, that he wins. If you were to just consider this standard, these 2 rooms standard, which you could very easily do that. And I originally did that when I first calculated this. The odds are roughly 1 in 4 billion of this run being obtained. Now, again, I'm not saying you should take my word with these statistics. Sorry, man, it's late and I am fumbling over my words. I'm just ready to be done with this, frankly. I highly, 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 highly recommend checking out this video. It is a very long video, but it is me going through every single room in his run, and basically breaking down all of the different options. And I don't think you can watch all the way through this video and come to the conclusion that he did not cheat. It is very, very, very blatant cheating. If you do find any discrepancies with this video, it is long, but if you do find anything, I will mention them either in a pinned comment and in this document or whatever. I'll recalculate the odds. But yeah, I'll try to keep this as up to date as possible. But yeah. So the issue with this method of looking for cheating is it is very time consuming. I have to watch through each room and figure out where the key is. Then I have to rewatch it and see if there are any alternative paths that he could take. And then I have to determine if like that was like standard. If like there are no enemies down here, like would checking down here even have been a path, which it wouldn't have been. So like this room would be standard. So this is very time consuming. So what I opted to do after this is checking keys. So for example, sorry, baby's a little upset. Have half a second to a. So let me fast forward and just give a brief example here. So this right here is a key check. So when you stop right here and kind of wait for the enemy to drop the key. I did write out a full rule set on which one that I would consider a key check and what I would consider not. But like, for example, this enemy would have been a perfectly fine key check because so when you defeat the enemy, it takes roughly 1 to 2 seconds before the key spawns. So you could just continue to keep going and check the other enemies, or since this enemy is very close to the door and you don't see any in the path, it would be very reasonable to pause and to stand here and wait to see if the enemy has the key. So rather than running all the way over here and then it has the key and then you have to run all the way back, you could just stay here and then wait for the key. Of course, he does not check the enemies unless they have the key. So I wrote out a whole rule set on just to avoid as much bias as possible. So feel free to read over this. This is how I mark enemies that do have the key, or like if it's a correct check, incorrect. If it's a last key, I will not consider it. And then if the enemy is too difficult to get past, I will not consider it a check. I will consider it a blocked. So this is what I came up with. So this was a lot easier to get a larger sample size because all you have to do is watch the run. And if they decide to check to see if the enemy has the key, then you mark an X or an O. Obviously, you can check multiple times throughout each room. So like if I were to stop and check one enemy, I could check another one, and then I could get last key. So this could happen. So another thing to consider, I'm also doing 50-50 again. This is also very, very, very reasonable. 50-50 odds are the best case scenario. So for example, if we have 10 enemies in the room and I decide to check the very first enemy to see if it has the key, that enemy has a 1 in 10 chance of holding the key, right? So now, say, instead of checking that enemy, or maybe I do check that enemy and it did not have the key. So I defeat 4 more enemies. So now there are 5 enemies left. If I decide to do another check, that enemy has a 1 in 5 chance of holding the key. So saying that this is only a 50-50 is being very, very, very generous, because the only enemy that is a true 50-50 is the second to last enemy. So if you only have 2 enemies left, one of them has the key, so it is a 50-50. However, I am applying all checks to only be a 50-50. So essentially, Ghost in his 116 checks the enemy 29 times and gets it right, and then 4 times and gets it wrong. So a total of 33 checks, and he only gets 4 wrong. So that is roughly 1 in 200,000, which is crazy. And then on top of that, the 117, he gets 22 correct and 3 wrong, which is also really, really, really crazy, like insane, like luck. You can just look at this graph right here, the ratio of correct guesses to wrong guesses. And then this is his run that he did a few weeks prior to developing the tool that he made. Where was I going with this? Wrong key, last key. So yeah, you can typically see that most runners have a lower rate. And then there's like Moonrise, who opts to like never check for enemy keys, which is pretty efficient, I'm not gonna lie. And then Phantom gets very, very lucky on his key checks. And I was like mind blown by how how good his luck was. And it's still 11 correct and 10 wrong. But yeah. So I've also linked this here. But yeah, that's where I was gonna go with this. Now another thing is, these 4 key checks are very, very suspicious. Like, for example, it's only the first enemy in the room that he checks that he gets wrong. So, for example, I think I'm explaining that here. So, hello? So yeah, so he checks this guy right here, and that's like the first enemy in the room. Sorry, my cat is trying to climb on everything. And then he does this on the first enemy in room 3. Now the thing is like, I don't know why you would check this enemy. Like, the door's nowhere near. Like, the only reason why I feel like you would do this check is to look less guilty, if that makes sense. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I would not consider these 4 checks even valid. Like, it seems like he's only doing these just to appeal. So I will just quickly show you. Hello, numpad? Why is that not working? Oh, I see. Let me swap to here we go. So let me just edit this real quick to 0. Am I like dumb? There we go. I don't know what that was. But yeah, so if you don't even consider the 4 that he gets wrong, which are literally just checking the first enemy in each one of those rooms, typically at the very start of the run or after he's being accused of cheating, roughly 1.5 billion odds of getting this accurate. Yeah. And the thing is like this looks crazy and it feels like I'm making this number up, but like there's no reason to check the first enemy in the room. It's almost like it's like a nervous tick to like, oh, I gotta prove that I'm not cheating. I mean, I'm obviously going to include it because he did check to see if those enemies had the key, but like that's not very likely. But yeah. So yeah, statistically, these runs are very, 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 very unlikely. He gets way too lucky. His accuracy for finding which enemy has the key is way too accurate. Typically, most runners have a less than ratio, but he has way, 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 way more correct than wrong. Because, of course, it is way more likely that the enemy will not have the key than to have the key. Just statistically, probably. Or using statistics and probability. Because, again, you walk into a room, and the first enemy you check is going to have a 1 in 10 chance of having the key. So your odds of getting it correct are very, very low. Another big thing that I believe that so first off, this isn't a dream situation. The whole issue with a dream was they had to prove that his run was cheated through statistics. And kind of one of the end conclusions that everybody, well, not everybody, but like if you followed the whole scandal long enough, basically he didn't really know that he was cheating. And he even admitted, yes, I found something that like kind of points to me cheating. Essentially, the game that he was playing on boosted the rates of those of the items that he needed in order to beat Minecraft. Now, the thing is the behavior wasn't weird. There was the only thing fishy about Dream's runs were the numbers. It was statistically improbable for him to get as lucky as he got. Now, statistics alone, I believe, heavily point in favor that Ghost did cheat. However, his behavior is, I think, what seals the deal for me. Oftentimes, you can kind of see that, well, Ghost doesn't really follow a pattern. Like, most runners will, like, clear the room in a circular motion. Like, they kill the enemies closest to them, and then they kind of circularly work towards the door. And I believe that this is optimal. I believe every runner should be trying to do that. But oftentimes he will like ditch random enemies for other enemies, or like he'll like seem to like target. He'll seem to like target one specific enemy. And yeah, if again, highly recommend. Please watch this run. I know it is very long. Please like piece it up. But the really, really, really bad rooms that I believe point to the fact that he most definitely did cheat are rooms 22, 53, 87, and 98. I could do a whole video on the 117 as well. There's a lot of where he basically says, I bet it's this enemy. And then he goes out of his way to go kill that enemy instead of all of the other ones, and then it has the key. He does this multiple times in the 117. But the 116, it's just him locking on to seemingly a random target, and that target has the key over and over and over and over again. Now, if the behavior wasn't enough, if the statistics weren't enough, and again, I would highly recommend you watch this. Like room 22 by itself, that's when I really knew that like he cheated. It's just ridiculous the stuff that he opts to do in favor of what he says his notes tell him to do. But again, if you look really deep into his notes, you'll notice that he doesn't follow all of his notes all the time. It's just typically convenient that many times when he does do really weird sporadic things, it's because his notes say, hey, go kill this enemy, and then he just like runs straight to that enemy, and then it has the key, and he ignores everything else along the way. I don't know. So if all of that isn't enough, all of the weird, very, very, very unlikely statistics, all of the really, really, really weird behavior during the runs, there's a lot of suspicious activity before, during, and after. So first off, September 9th, he does his 120. This is a very good run. Not a lot of runners are capable of getting a 120. It's just difficult. You have to know what you're doing in order to get a 120. Sorry, my cats are being crazy. So on September 21st, Ghost commits JP Revision 1 of the Super Paper Mario Net Memory access to GitHub publicly. So GitHub is basically a place where you can post coding projects and whatnot. Essentially, this allows him to use net memory access, the thing that I just showed you before that shows where all the enemies that have the key. This allows him to play on the Japanese version and use this rel mod at the same time. So the 21st is when he does this. So the 23rd, he points out that the center of the room is not 0, but negative 37.5. Now, the reason why I think that he did this is because if you look at the little box thing that I made that shows like where the enemy that has the key, let me just scroll up here. So this thing right here, typically what you would want to do is like to set something like this up, you would tell AI, hey, plot these points within this grid. And then you would want the top left and then the bottom right, or the bottom left and the top right. It doesn't matter. So I had to do this as well when creating this. So the reason why he likely points this out is because the top of the room over here, so this is like negative 500, 400, and this is like 400, 0. So the room's off by like a few hundred pixels, and it's really, really weird why. I'm not sure why it's like that, but he probably also noticed that, thought it was funny, and then he's like, hey, by the way, the center of the room is really not even it's not even center, it's off for whatever reason. So I believe that this shows that he is currently setting up the viewer that shows him where in the room the enemy with the key is. So the 25th, he DMs me this code. So this code right here, is the code that I showed before, right here. So this prints all of the enemies in the room, their location, and what item they're holding. Yeah, you can literally see this item is 48. So therefore, this enemy has the key. So that is literally what this function does in its whole. The only thing I modified was this right here, and I put a print statement to print off the information that he sent so that I could see it in the console. But yeah, the only thing I had to do was change this to work for the Japanese version rather than the European. That is literally it. Just one line of code figuring out where the base slot addresses are. And then this is him pointing out that he does know where the item drop ID is. Yeah. So 25th, he sends me this code. The 27th, he gets a 117. And then 3 days later, he gets a 116. Yeah. And then the same day, on the 30th, I reach out to him. I said, GG on the 116, you're actually correct. I hadn't actually watched it at the time. And then I was asking something to do with my senior project. So then he's like, I feel really bad, though, at the same time, because I got this run in 5 or 6 runs after my 120.31. Now, just in case you don't know, this world record by Castle, I guess it's a PB now by Cora. Like, this has taken them like months and months and months of daily attempts. Like, this, I think this took like roughly like 200 to 300 attempts to get a 117.31. You have to play phenomenally. First off, you have to play very, very, very well. And then on top of that, you have to get lucky. You have to get good first keys and good rooms and know how to clear rooms as fast as possible. And Ghost has hardly run this category and gets a 116 after what he says 5 or 6 attempts. And so I was like, wow, that's actually crazy. So this was kind of like a first like little red flag to me. I was like, that is very lucky. Like, wow, like only 5 or 6 attempts. I kind of shrugged it off. Didn't really think much about it at the time. But yeah. So these are Ghost's splits. You can see in real time. So this is a 120 that he gets here. And then September 10th, he gets a 120. And then he develops the tool. And then on the 25th, I would say, is probably when you can say that it was done. Then he magically goes from a 120 and then he does a random run a couple days later and resets the boomer. And then he gets a 117.44. Like, that is a crazy run. Like, crazy run to just get after a 120. And his excuse is saying, I don't know where it went. Did I post it before? I might have to re-add this. Doesn't matter. But his excuse was saying, I did this in real time. I was practicing pit light, and that's why I got so good at pit percent. And so you can kind of see how this lines up. And then he does another run on the 30th, gets a 118. He resets to room 70, and then he resets to, I guess, the point grind, and then he resets to green bridge skip, and then he gets a 116. That is just crazy. So yeah, like you could say that that's like really, 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 really lucky. But I disagree. I believe that his behavior more than points out that he knows where the keys are, and that aligns perfectly with my theory. And so his explanation for this is he was like working on a side project for the community during this. That it had to do with the pit% key viewer, or like not key viewer, but like that he was working with pit% to like change certain items. I don't doubt that he did something like that, like that he was like maybe initially working on something like that, but I don't know. It's just so like you send me something that like literally shows where all the enemies are, where the key is, like that, and then like 2 days later you get a very, very, very suspicious run that heavily leans to the idea that you know exactly where all the enemies are and which one has the key. It just, I don't know, doesn't feel right. But yeah. And then, of course, I don't like bringing this back up because I'm literally the person telling people to, hey, we should forgive him. We should give him a second chance. People make mistakes. And I do believe that. I do believe people make mistakes and everybody deserves a second chance. But he has cheated before. And we did kind of have to like wiggle it out of him to admit to cheating. And I don't know, like it's just this really doesn't add up. Like if you've watched any of these rooms, if you've seen his behavior, if you've looked at the statistics, and if you've looked at his GitHub commits, I don't think that you can say that like these runs are not tampered with. And this is like another thing as well. Like he seems really excited to kind of sweep this under the rug. I mean, I would be too. Like especially if I was innocent, I would want this to be like done and over with. But like, I would also be doing everything in my power to prove my innocence. I just have yet to find anything that maybe even suggests that he could be innocent. Like, the only plausible thing that I have heard is, yes, he actually got the 1 in 4 billion, or the 1 in 500,000, or the 1 in 200 million odds of just being super right and accurate and knowing where all the enemies are. And he just decided to play very weird because he just had a very, very strong feeling. And so maybe like he has like some kind of sixth sense that tells him where the key is. Or he has a Python script that shows him exactly where the key is. I think that that's a much simpler conclusion. That's, I don't know, what I've found. So I will say, as this has persisted, I am furious with him. I'm very upset that I have to be up at 4 a.m. freaking making this video and like making a huge document pointing out every single possible like breadcrumb and like making an entire 2-hour video talking about how ridiculous it is that he skips 3 boos several times. Like, instead of killing these guys, he opts to just randomly try to kill the Goomba. And so the thing is I have so much to lose here. I don't want these runs to be cheated. Like, SacredGhost is a very well, what I used to consider a really close friend of mine. Now I'll never be able to trust him again. He's done an amazing job with the community. Like, I, I don't know. It's just it towards the end of our DMs, my messages with him, which I've linked by the way, so that you can view our conversation. What typically happened is I called him and I blew up at him. I was angry. I said, I know you cheated, and I just want you to come clean. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know how to prove it to you. I didn't cheat. And seeing this right here, him skipping all of these enemies over and over and over again, leaving tons of other enemies behind, and then going straight for the enemy that has the key over and over and over and over and over again, there's no way that you can argue that he didn't cheat. And so when he tells me that I know he's lying to me, I got really upset. And I yelled at him and I said, like, I'm so disappointed in you. Like, I can't believe that you would do this. I'm giving you 24 hours to come clean, or I'm reporting you, is basically what I said. Now, after that blow up, I had a few other conversations with him, and I realized, like, obviously, like, I'm not getting anywhere productive, just yelling at him, telling him how disappointed I am, and yada, 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 yada. Essentially, I said, I'm down to sit down with you and John, and you can explain to me why you think that this isn't cheated. And I'll explain to you, and we'll walk through the whole run, and we'll look at all these runs, and look at all these really suspicious rooms where you seem to lock onto an enemy, and then it has the key. And I had a really hard time getting a hold of him after that, obviously. He basically said, like, I don't feel comfortable with you anymore. And I said, of course, like, I completely understand. But I would like to check your computer to check something to see if you cheated. And I'm not even going to reveal that here because I don't want him to be able to delete what I think might be cheated, or giving evidence to how he cheated. Just in case, for whatever reason, he decides to let somebody else view his computer or whatever. But essentially, I persisted, and I said it'd take 3 to 4 minutes. When can I check your computer? And then he said, I'm going to be busy for the next 5 days. So I give him 5 days. I don't respond. I don't pester. 5 days rolls up, and I say, okay, like, it's been 5 days. I would like to check your computer. And basically he says, you make me uncomfortable. Stop harassing me. I'm blocking you. Very short and sweet. Again, you can read all of it if you'd like. Yeah. I guess in conclusion with all of this, I'm exhausted right now, so it's really hard for me to point out how, like, frustrated I am with this. Again, please watch this if you have the time. I know it's 2 hours, but I think this is the best way that you can see firsthand how ridiculously cheated this run is. It's really bad. But yeah, I will say this as well. What do we do now? So I will say that runners will likely need to reset their console before each attempt, or they'll need to stream their entire attempts, and include the beginning when they show the boot up process of their Wii. Simply because resetting through the home menu does not reset the the rel mod. I can answer more questions about that later. But yeah. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say besides I'm really upset. I'm excited to be done with this. I have poured way too much time into calculating statistics, gathering data, reviewing this entire run from start to finish. I could do the same thing with the 117. It's just as weird. There's a lot less rooms that are blatantly cheated, but a lot of it is like, hey, I think that enemy has the key, and it has the key every time. But yeah, I will talk to you guys later.